to returning citizens. We were able to negotiate a deal where we got like 30 minutes on the radio at 99 Jams to talk about, Amendment 4 and other local, policies and politics. Enjoyed it, so we started doing it on Sundays as like a podcast with, at the time, Janet Michelle. She was our co-host, and she, filled that role until she moved. And then we had Carla Bristol, Carla B. She came in for a season. And then Reno was behind the scenes. He was always present because we did organizing together, so he'd come and hang out. And then the things that he was saying off camera was like, man, we might as well just have you on the show.
The negative thoughts that you is thinking about right now, or any particular subject, y'all, just flip it.
Turn problems into opportunities.
Problems are opportunities, man. Big shouts out to Sauce and Predo, man.
Real deal, man.
We on the jump board together right now.
Just being around people and clearly always talking, I just felt like at least learn something, so as you see that you're not going to shut up, you can have substance to your conversation and not just be labeled somebody who just love to talk.
Really being informative, looking to give the information that isn't readily available in our community.
Multiple meteorologists can look at the same data and come up with a different forecast.
And so now you take those models, take that data and say, okay, based upon all of that,
absolutely,
you might be in between here and there, and that's my know what I'm saying speech.
Most recently, after Carla B, transitioned out and went to do other things as well, Kiana, we invited Kiana.
I've been working with the guys for a while outside of this, and they called me to interview. And when I came in to interview that Sunday, after the show, they was like, hey, you need to be a part of the show. And I was like, okay.
I look at it almost like a band and the instruments, but it's just the instrument that we're using is our voices.
My voice is already kind of squeaky. I know my voice can get squeakier.
You have to have your radio voice on and have that vocal control.
I talk lower when I need to calm it down. And when I'm very passionate about it, I slow it down. And because I want you to understand what I'm saying.
What's good for the geese is good for the gander. So if you keep it secrets, just know that she can too.
Okay, and see that's why that's why you need it on the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club. You feel? So you gonna even things out. You know what I'm saying? I was just joking. You know what I'm saying? It was joking.
We just understand power, and in terms of people's attention, because it costs. People's attention costs. That's why it's called pay attention.
We want to present local information right up there with, the trending topics.
One thing that's a common denominator with all of us is that we're all passionate about our people.
For me, what you take from me is that I'm real and I'm passionate about the growth of our people.
The overall goal, I would say, is to have a more informed community. Around electoral politics, around health, around equity.
It's about the mission of connecting the dots and closing the gaps, inspiring people to see what's possible, and trying to be an example. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing sometimes, but you do the best that you can with what you have, and you pray that others will be inspired to join in.
Hello, I'm Gabe Ortiz, and this is WEDU Arts Plus. Based out of St. Pete, the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club is a morning radio show about hip-hop life and urban culture. Meet the hosts who inform and empower their listeners.
Edmond. I go by Mr. Edmond. My role, I'm a host and I'm co-founder.
My name is Brother John Muhammad, Your Brother John, YourBrotherJohn.com. And my role on the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club is host or co-host.
I just go by Kiana. Sometimes you may hear the guys call me Q. I may say Q just depending on my personality that day. And I'm the female of the crew. All right? I think I keep balance when you look at the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club. So that's my role.
And I'm Bruce Moore Jr. A lot of people do know Bruce Moore Jr., obviously being born and raised here and going to school here, but there's many more people that know Reno.
St. Pete is small. And so the good things and bad things that come with a small city, you know, everybody knowing each other, of course, would be one of the pluses.
My neighbors were not only just my neighbors, they became my family.
Trying to put that back now, like really getting back to a place where we know our neighbors and we look out for each other. It was a St. Pete that existed, you know, south of Central, and then there was another St. Pete that existed north of Central and downtown. It was a struggle then, and I think it's still, you know, somewhat a struggle for black people in the city of St. Pete.
Even with every step of progress we make, it's still a struggle to, you know, implement that progress.
Did y'all hear about the weed college, the first cannabis college
in Orlando?
Talk to him, Sean Soprano.
Yeah, I've been looking at it.
This is serious, y'all.
Over a year ago.
If you got the charges, go and get the degrees, King. You got years of experience, man. It ain't like you come into a classroom with no data.
Elon Musk said that a drug dealer knows how to manage and run a business better.
I can't believe that.
The real facts, man.
I'm all about education. But what I'm saying is that we carry this industry on our backs.
The way we started the Tampa Bay Breakfast Club, Jabbar approached me about what could we do, how can we do something together, and then an opportunity to promote Amendment 4. Amendment 4 is the, you know, voting rights restoration to returning citizens. We were able to negotiate a deal where we got like 30 minutes on the radio at 99 Jams to talk about, you know, Amendment 4 and other local, you know, policies.
On the agenda, you may only speak once. During the open forum.
Hello, I'm Gabe Ortiz, and this is WEDU Arts Plus.
Address council. Each individual will be given 3 minutes to speak, and after which the microphone will be muted. If you wish to address City Council through the Zoom meeting, you must use the raise hand feature button in the Zoom app or enter *9 on your phone at the time the agenda is addressed. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and asked to state your name and address. At the conclusion of your comments, or when you have reached the 3-minute time limit, you will be muted. All raised hands will be lowered after each agenda item. Regardless of the method of participation used, normal rules apply, including the 3-minute time limit on comments. The requirement that any presentation material must be submitted in advance of the meeting, and the rules of decorum. If live public comment is disrupted by violations of the rules of decorum, the chair is authorized to accept public comments by alternate means, including by email only. And we do have some speakers.
All right, thank you. And just a reminder, if you are speaking on one of the public hearing items, J2 or J3 today, on those, you actually have to wait for the public hearing in order to speak. So this would be for any other items on the agenda or any other city business.
Donna Scott and Dr. Barb Stein, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address council.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not wearing an orange shirt because this shirt represents how pickleball got started for me at St. Pete Beach Community Center. It was the only place 15 years ago in the area that you could play. As a result, it expanded. I had over 350 people as an email address contact. These shirts we ordered from an entrepreneur business on 4th Street. Over 400 shirts. We changed the logo because these are seen all over the United States. But long story short, pickleball and tennis can very well get along together. I understand that's the emphasis. We went on an excursion down to Club Med in Port St. Lucie, where there's a tennis academy there with 20 tennis courts. They relegated us to the back court and said, you know, have fun. Since then, this Club Med has been bought out by Sandpiper. They now have 20 pickleball courts, and 6 tennis courts. They intermingle so that people can have tournaments, and it just has really expanded. One of the things I think St. Pete is missing is the opportunity to show pickleball power. If you look down in Bradenton, the new center that they built down there, Bradenton only has 58,000 people. And they built this brand new center with 20 pickleball courts, 6 clay courts. I sat on a commission, I spoke at a county commission in Haywood County in Waynesville, North Carolina, where I spend the summers. They were presenting the ability to have 6 pickleball courts in a park outside. The committee was very much for this. Not only did they approve the expenditure, they asked for a revision so that there would be 8 courts. So basically what I'm saying is, St. Pete, you're missing the boat. There's so much opportunity out there, so much notoriety, so much experience with the pros and everybody getting involved in pickleball. So there should be a place, way back, I lived in Woodlawn, and we went in front of the Parks and Recreation Department because we didn't want to keep traveling all the way to St. Pete Beach. Ultimately, they agreed pickleball was here to stay, and they sent out memos to everybody and said, get with it. If you look on the Parks and Recreation website now, you'll see that almost every rec center in St. Pete has either indoor, outdoor, or both. So really, think about it. Think about what pickleball can do for us, the tournaments, everything that can go with it, because it's coming. You'll sure to see it in the Olympics one of these days because it is the going thing. It also helps with friendship. We have developed so many friends with this one particular place. We go to lunch every Friday and we have at least 40 people, mostly at the restaurant. So we're supporting the community as well. It's not just, let's have fun, let's play. It's a lot of.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Dr. Barbara Stein. I'm at 1010 7th Street North. I'm a retired medical doctor with a specialty in forensic neuropsychiatry. I'm also a very passionate pickleball player and a former competitive tennis player. I'm here to speak about the mental, physical, and community benefits of pickleball. It's not just a game. NBA great and new Major League Pickleball owner Kevin Durant said, quote, "Pickleball is truly the most democratizing sport I've ever seen. Everyone welcomes everyone into the community," close quote. I agree with Mr. Durant from my own personal and many others' experiences. The last several years have been exceedingly difficult for many people. Divisive politics and anger, high inflation, economic woes, recession fears, and a global pandemic on top of all. The rates of anxiety, depression, suicide, social isolation, and psychological stress have skyrocketed. Chronic stress is associated with increased blood pressure, cardio and neurovascular illness, diminished immunity, obesity, insomnia, anxiety, depression, and increased risk of diabetes and even dementia. Stress can also exacerbate social isolation, violent behavior, substance use disorders, and suicidality. Many countries and cities recognize that health and well-being is critical to the community's well-being. The Prime Minister of New Zealand recently said the purpose of government spending is to ensure citizens' health and life satisfaction. Pickleball mitigates many of these problems. A study in the International Journal of Research in Exercise Physiology found middle-aged older adults who play 1 hour of pickleball 3 days per week for 6 weeks improved blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and cardiorespiratory fitness. Some women, including myself, have dramatically increased their bone density from pickleball play. As an easily adaptable form of exercise, it has also been shown to decrease anxiety and depressive symptoms, insomnia, and even cognitive problems. Pickleball promotes a sense of belonging and increases interpersonal connections. It also builds community and unity by providing the bridge between people of different races, religions, ethnicities, national origins, orientations, socioeconomic class, and political ideologies. It is truly the most democratizing and health-promoting sport. I hope this great city that we all love becomes a leader in building out our pickleball community. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. Next to, folks, if you could please not have any applause. It's just part of the rules. Thank you.
Graham D'Amico and Patricia Wagner.
Hi, Council. Graham D'Amico, address is 116 13th Avenue Northeast. And I was asked by this beautiful group of people to talk a little bit about the professional side of pickleball. I recently became the owner of a Major League Pickleball team with like they said before, the likes of Kevin Durant. Also, LeBron James is now a team owner. Brene Brown, Tom Brady, Gary Vanderchuk, Anheuser-Busch made a purchase 2 days ago of a team, as well as Dude Perfect and Kim Kleisters. So the sport is growing dramatically. And I think what we need in St. Pete and what the group is talking to is a larger centralized location so that we can host some of these larger events. Our budget for Major League Pickleball next year is around $13 million for 6 events. Just to host one single event last year cost us over $1 million. I think that's a lot of economic impact for the city of St. Pete. Also, another big thing that we need this facility for, and when I say facility, that's roughly 24 courts, similar to what they were talking about before at GT Bray Center, as many covered courts as possible in that facility. The other reason is to attract top pros to the area. So as we're speaking in this moment, they're having nationals out in Palm Springs for pickleball, over 3,000 competitors. 3 of the top 10 pros live in the city of St. Pete and train on your rec courts at Crescent Lake, at JW Cates. But they need a place to train with higher level pros, and they need a place to teach because that's how they compensate and make their money when they're not winning at pickleball. A new stat that's coming out in the next month or two shows that in the last 3 months, over 13.7 million people have played pickleball. And in the last 12 months, over 33 million. The stat before that was thought to be somewhere between 5 and 8 million. It's come to find out it's much higher than that. And also that there are roughly 295 pickleball players per pickleball court in the US, while there are only 55 tennis players per tennis court currently in the US. So obviously there's a need for more pickleball courts. What's great is you can fit roughly 6 courts, pickleball courts, for every 2 tennis courts. So it's a nice transition, easy to fit more in. And I think that that problem of needing more pickleball courts definitely holds true here in the city of St. Pete. And to show that, I invite you to come out any night between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. to Crescent Lake or down to Coquina Key. Sit on the paddle rack with me for an hour, wait to play a game. I'll introduce you to the game. I'll even give you a paddle and some pointers on how to play. So thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Patricia Wagner. I'm an owner at 1010 Central Avenue and a recent Foreign Service retiree. I am also the board president at 1010 Central and serve as the secretary of the Edge Business District Association. So in retirement, I'm wanting to get involved with my city, which I love and I'm a native of. Our residents, I want to talk today about 1111 Central, a new project that's been proposed for the Edge District. Our residents in 1010 Central, we have over 116, including all of our businesses, are very concerned about the traffic and parking issues. Traffic is already congested, and this project, which includes 114 hotel rooms, restaurants, etc., which is almost catty-corner across another hotel project, the Moxie, which does have parking for their project, yet there is no parking lot provided and no long-term parking solution. David Moore, the developer, agreed with 1010 to provide a 10-year off-site parking lot agreement to solve that problem. However, he backed out on that and told the board that he would no longer, he would not execute the promised off-site parking. This is both a hotel, there are restaurants. We need some kind of a parking situation. They want a valet off of 11th. We're worried about how the parking, how the traffic will back up into the circle and down the street. We already don't have sufficient parking. Also, the on-site valet that they're talking about would require ingress or egress on either Baum or Central, which will cause the traffic flow issues for both our district residents and owners. I ask that you please ask the project to resolve this issue and come up with a long-term off-site parking situation. The other project on the corner of 11th and 1st Avenue North has come up with an off-site valet project to be able to take care of the folks in that building. It is important that we keep our lovely and wonderful, vibrant city a place where people can come to and they can enjoy the areas. And we need you to please make sure that we're not against having a project, but we are currently, and other people from our group will speak on that, but we're not supporting this project as it stands right now with this type of parking. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to bring in the Zoom speakers next, and we'll go back to those in the chamber.
Okay.
All right, the next speaker is Bryce Springfield. Bryce, once you enter into the meeting space, please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address City Council. Bryce?
Yep, hello. My name is Bryce Springfield. Address is 3316 31st Avenue North, apartment 203. I don't want to talk about the gas plant district and social housing. So normally, like if you have the resources, in most cases, you should probably buy your permanent residence rather than rent it forever, right? And I just think that's the situation that we need to think about with respect to ownership of the gas plant district. You know, what's better for housing in the long run? Effectively renting private units via subsidies to private profits, or buying or building our own properties that can be used for public benefit. I think the best option is clear. We need to build our public wealth in the long run and keep our public land public. And we can do that with, we can make it even better by getting developers to build city-owned housing in the gas plant district. That's how we can make housing permanently affordable. And that's how Finland, the only European country that is having decreasing homelessness, is resolving that issue. We need to think beyond just decelerating the increase of housing insecurity. We need to decrease the housing insecurity. And then along with that, you know, how much do you think we could get from, you know, renting lands that's owned by the city, rent it out to businesses? Think about how we can support social services and racial and economic equality with that power as a public, you know, public owner of land that's democratically elected. And then to address the traffic and parking issues that someone just mentioned, imagine how you can support public transit that condenses traffic while making better use of limited land with things other than large parking lots. And, you know, we can build pickleball courts because we have that land there. I think that's, you know, this is all, we have a lot of great opportunities there. So I'm hoping that you all will please work with the mayor and make the best choice. Keep our public resources public, so we have more resources in the future and can really support housing efforts and other social services and pickleball. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Madam Chair, in Zoom is Alec Wilkowski. Alec, once you enter into the meeting space, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address City Council. Alec?
Hi there, this is Alec Wilkowski. I live at 3752 38th Avenue North. First of all, I'd like to thank all the city staff for keeping our city operational during Hurricane Nicole. I'm here to speak in support of items G1 and G2. After the Dobbs decision by the United States Supreme Court, local governments have a much more important role to play in protecting a woman's right to privacy and providing support for those who want to exercise that right. I know Tampa has already taken action on this matter, and I know we're not to be outdone. So I ask that this body refer this item to the HERS committee for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
The next person is Emily Washington and Jabbar Edmonds. Please step up to the podium. State your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address council.
My name is Emily Washington. This is my first time. My address is 1715 27th Street South, St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida. Basically, I'm here to talk about the Manhattan Casino, but I'm speaking as an employee. My name is Emily Washington, and I'm born and raised in the community. I was also lucky to have one of the lucky ones to share the accomplishments and disappointment that has taken place at the Manhattan Casino. But I am one to say my greatest experience is being able to serve and please many of the community, people in the community and outside of the community. Um, I have given a chance to help with the accomplishment and the mission. We have really made an impact on many, more positive than negative. Yes, I understand that a lot of behind scenes issues are being mentioned. I expect that out of the business. But what I don't understand is why we can't come together as a community, urban collector in the city, and continue to make memorable experiences for our community and people outside of our community. I also ask that you be mindful of the employees that has gave their time and energy and put in hours of things, working and making things happen at the Manhattan Casino just to know at the end of the month we're done and we're unemployed. We also have some employees that has been there through all three changes. And we have, so imagine the impact on them. Today, my request from you, from the city, is to consider giving the urban collectors another lease with the backing and funding of the city. Keep in mind the mission that Mr. Jordan had for the Manhattan Casino. And we was doing all the missions that he had for the casino. And also consider everyone that will be affected by whatever decision that you make. I pray to God to see grace, I pray to God that God see grace and allow our ancestors to step in and influence your vote on how you vote against this, for this Manhattan Casino to be ran.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? My name is Jabbar Edmond, Childs Park neighborhood. I'm a lifelong resident. Well, I want to speak. I'm one of the investors for the Urban Collective that came in for the Manhattan Casino, but I really want to just speak as a citizen. My family, well, I grew up here in St. Pete. My family's from Jordan Park. My grandmother eventually moved out of Jordan Park, but our roots still stayed, in the community along 22nd. I grew up in the neighborhood. I grew up all around 22nd. And on 20, well, when I was growing up, it was kind of like abandoned. It was dilapidated. It was really no businesses. It really was kind of like it is now, but it was more houses, right? Especially right in front of the Manhattan Casino. We had like friends that stayed back there in those neighborhoods. So speed the story up. I was released from prison in 2005. When I returned to the community, I was kind of lost, you know. I actually ended up finding my way, meeting some great people who showed me some great things. And the reason I'm saying all this, because the Manhattan Casino is a part of this story. This has been the biggest opportunity of my lifetime. I've made a lot of investments on the South Side. I'm a serial investor, if y'all don't know. But this is the biggest, this has had the most impact. We've touched more people than I ever touched. I'm a community organizer, I knock doors, and I work on campaigns. So being a part of the Manhattan Casino is like an extension of my community work. That's how I felt, because I was a part of the last few RFP processes. I actually helped the losing grantees do videos and all kinds of stuff. So I know the contract. A lot of people say we didn't know the contract. Like, I personally knew the contract because of my interactions before the first RFP went out when Callaloo won. When Callaloo won, I was there that day. I met Vincent Jackson, ask Mario. So, like I say, I have a long history with this place. It's been a joy of my life to be a part of this. Seeing people cry when we say we will do the event. watching people tears, talk about their grandmother, their aunties, and their memories. And I'm thankful. I'm not bitter. I don't have any hate, animosity in my heart for anything that has transpired due to this. It's a business transaction, but it's not business as usual. And it never was business as usual. And I think that's how we have to look at it. This is extraordinary circumstance with an extraordinary situation. Thank y'all for the time.
Keandra, Darlene, and Emily. Okay.
Hello, my name is Keandra Darling. I am a resident at 873 Newton Avenue South. And today I came before City Council as a lifelong resident, an advocate for race equity, and a friend. I voted and supported every member here on City Council right now, with the exception of Ed, because we represent different parties, but I grew to know you and appreciate you while working with you in the City Council office. And I supported Brother John in your appointment. Congratulations. I also voted and fully support our Mayor Ken Welch. I've stayed quiet on the issue as it relates to Urban Collective and the Manhattan Casino because I really did trust that the city would do the right thing by supporting Urban Collective and the Manhattan Casino, but today I stand here disappointed. The issue of the Manhattan Casino and the city's failure to support Urban Collective is not a matter of pointing fingers or bashing elected officials. Instead, it's an opportunity to think about how equity is applied through policy to help and not hurt Black businesses and Black communities. Urban Collective is made up of mainly Black young entrepreneurs and public servants who were born and raised in South St. Pete. The collective is representative of the people in the historic community that they serve and they support. I've seen them put in long hours, pay employees out of pocket, take losses on income opportunities to support community efforts by offering them space for low or no costs. And I've watched them pour their blood, their sweat, their tears, and their resources into this business. When a resident, a teacher, or a city worker is about to be evicted from their homes, we don't focus on the amount of rent that they owe, and we don't use that as a means to justify them losing their housing. We talk about the obstacles that they've faced and the things that they've been affected by. We talk about the income as it relates to the rising cost of living, and we think creatively about solutions for them to maintain their housing. But in the case of Urban Collective, it seems that we've been so quick to jump to the excuse of unpaid back rent to villainize them, withhold support, and to block access to resources while admitting during a recorded public meeting that they got a shitty deal. While it is understood that businesses should be held accountable to their commitments, when you withhold support, businesses don't typically get better, they close. So I ask you all to sit here today and answer this for yourselves. How many of you have personally visited the Manhattan Casino to meet with the business owners to offer support? How many of you have called the collective to understand their challenges? How many of you supported them directly by dining there, holding events, or recommending businesses? Let's be not so quick to point the fingers, but let's think creatively about solutions and the stipends giving to other businesses, but not extended to Urban.
Thank you.
No more speakers.
Okay, thank you. We'll close open forum. And we will go to our legal item today, item I1. Mr. McCollum.
Item I have for you today is a settlement on a personal injury case. Just by way of background, the plaintiff was Jason Byerly. This is an accident back from 2019. This was an automobile collision on the interstate with a police car. It was kind of a rush hour accident where everything got accordioned. Liability has been already found by the court against the city on this. It's a pretty significant accident, and the plaintiff had some pretty significant injuries with pretty high medical bills. We reached a resolution recently for $62,500. The case is set for a jury trial coming up up in about 4 weeks. This settlement here today, if approved by the council, would obviously get rid of the need to have the jury trial. So we're seeking approval from City Council of this lawsuit.
Move approval.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve item I-1. Seeing that there's no request for discussion, will the clerk please open the machine for voting? Council members, please enter your votes. Seeing that all council members have voted, will the clerk please tally and announce the votes?
Madam Chair, the motion to approve agenda item I-1 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Next, we'll have reports, beginning with item F2, our agreement between the city and Rowdy Soccer LLC. Mr. Zeoli.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Joe Zeoli, City Development Administration. We're bringing forward an agreement for City Council with Rowdy Soccer LLC for the management, maintenance, and operation of Al Lang Stadium for a 3-year term commencing December 1st, 2022. Al Lang Stadium has been the home of the Rowdies since 2011, but St. Pete's history with the Rowdies goes back a bit farther. It actually started on February 14th, 1975. That was Valentine's Day, when the Rowdies defeated the Washington Diplomats in the North American Soccer League indoor regional tournament that was held at Bayfront Center Arena. Little note that I was an 18-year-old usher at the time at Bayfront Center, and I was fortunate enough to be in the arena during that event, which really started the city's love affair with the Rowdies. In 1993, the Rowdies played their last season of what's been called their classic era before leaving the field for nearly 2 decades. In 2010, the Rowdies played their inaugural season of the new era at Steinbrenner Field before moving in 2011 to their current home at Al Lang Stadium. The Rowdies have been members of the USL Championship League since 2017. Rowdy Soccer LLC are the current managers of Al Lang Stadium under an agreement with the city that expires this November 30th of 2022. They have requested a new 3-year agreement commencing December 1st and ending on November 30th, 2025. City administration and the Rowdy Soccer LLC have negotiated a new agreement that's consistent with the current agreement that we have, but includes a few changes, and I'd like to identify those for City Council. Certainly the first is the term. This agreement would start at December 1st, 2022 and go for 3 years with an expiration November 30th, 2025. Included in the agreement, in addition to Rowdy Soccer events, is a requirement that the operator, which is Rowdy Soccer, will conduct a minimum of 10 non-Rowdy events at Al Lang each contract year at no cost to the city. There's some interior signage within the facility, and the city negotiated to have the rights for 1 dasher board sign along the side of the pitch playing surface at no cost to the city. Additionally, the city has the right to display temporary interior signage at the stadium to promote city and community events. One of the items that's changed a little bit is facility naming rights opportunities. Rowdy Soccer will have the right to request a name change of Al Lang Field, which is the name of the park per our city code, and or a change of name to Al Lang Stadium, the current name of the facility. Any name change would require the written permission of the city, which may be granted only in accordance with applicable law, including our city ordinance requirements. If a name change is requested, the name Al Lang will continue to be included in either the name of the facility or in the name of the field at the facility. Any naming rights that are generated during the term of the agreement will be shared 80% to the operator and 20% to the city, with the city's share capped annually at $50,000. There's also a provision that talks about capital improvement funding for Al Lang. There are currently some very significant capital repair and improvement needs at the facility. These include items such as the field lighting systems, the playing surface of the pitch, elevator modernization, and facility waterproofing. So subject to the receipt of a capital improvement plan from the operator, the city has agreed to pay the operator $200,000 per contract year to help defray the costs of some of these capital repair or improvement costs. With us today, in case City Council does have questions, are representatives from the Rowdies. We have Brian Auld, Jeff Parkinson, and Ryan Hilfrich, who are available for questions. And certainly, City Administration does recommend approval of the new outlaying agreement with the Rowdies and approval also of the required fund transfers and supplemental appropriation for the capital improvement funding. All the approvals are included in the resolution that's been provided to City Council as part of your agenda packet.
Thank you. Councilmember Gertis.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, thanks for the presentation. And my only comment was that you did real well because you called it a pitch. And my brother-in-law would be very happy that we called it a pitch. So I appreciate the presentation, and I'd move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Councilmember Hanowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joe, for your presentation. I just had a question regarding the change regarding the naming rights. Why is it capped annually at 50,000?
Well, yeah, thank you. The intent really, as we were talking about this with the Rowdies, was they would really, there's a lot of demands on Outlying Stadium, quite honestly. There's a lot of deferred improvements that should happen out there. The opportunity to get some naming rights would actually help to offset some of the costs of that for them mostly, and a little bit for us. So we figured the lion's share of those naming rights, would be available to the Rowdies so that they could actually use that as an investment opportunity for the stadium. And at the same time, the city would get some recognition, if you will, that we would share in those proceeds. So that was kind of, we negotiated that amount out at the time.
Yeah, I just was wondering, how do you come up with 50? Like the 50,000, is there any reason why 50,000 specifically?
Well, we talked about, kind of a wide variety of how we could share the revenues on that, and we ended up settling at that number. So that's really was just a negotiated amount.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Montanari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Joe, for the presentation. I guess my first question is on the naming, the city ordinance when it comes to naming rights. Can we get just a quick review, the highlights of that ordinance, please?
Yes, good afternoon, council. It's park property, so it's subject to the naming criteria in Chapter 21 of the City Code. If you'd like me to go over that, I just need a second to pull it up. But any naming would have to be by ordinance and pursuant to the criteria in Chapter 21 and subject to City Council approval.
Okay.
And there's also conditions that are required for any naming. And as Mr. Zioli said, it would include the name Outlaying either in the name of the facility or in the name of the field.
Okay. And in the backup material, it talks about the operator may request naming for a portion of the facility. So how many things could they rename?
I'm not familiar with it. I mean, but that's, if there's a locker room, I guess, or, so it's just, I guess, proportions of the property that they could propose a name that this would be a conference room at Outlaying Field, the locker room at Outlaying Field. So those are, I guess it's just that what someone would find value in potential portions of the facility at Outlaying Field that they would want to propose a name for.
So legally, there's no limit on the number of things. I think it's more operational that Joe could speak to.
Yeah, the idea was that we wanted to make sure that the Rowdies were aware the facility is sitting in a park, a charter park. And as part of that, any naming change, including a portion of that park, would require to go through the process. So that's why we kind of embedded that in the agreement.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, thank you for that review. Can we talk a little bit about the noise management part of the agreement. And do we have, in the current agreement, do we have a similar provision?
That's correct, we do, and we'll continue to have that. We know that the facility can be used for things like concerts, and there's a sensitivity in the downtown area about noise. We want to make sure that as we bring forward these events, which we support, we want to see the facility used, but it has to be done in a proper manner. So by requiring a noise management plan, it requires the operator to take a look at those things. Where are the speakers going to be placed? What type of how is the audience going to be configured in there? The timing of the event to make sure that we comply with the city noise ordinances, all those type of things, is really to help us keep focused on the fact that we want to make sure we're delivering the events in a proper fashion.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I have one question, or maybe a couple questions for the Rowdies. I'd like to just get a quick review on the complex that you have over in Tampa. Can you give us just a quick review of the complex that you built over in Tampa, and how does that work with Al Lang?
I'm going to let Jeff Parkinson do it, who's been maintaining the fields over there as well as here and knows way more about it than I do.
Okay.
So, good afternoon, Council. Our complex over in Tampa, we wanted to build for the team for training purposes. It won't take away from any events or games. It's strictly to have the facility the size that the team can train. Because right now we train at Al Lang, we play at Al Lang, so that is our home. That will always be our home, for the foreseeable future. But as far as getting the team adequate training facilities and space, that's why we chose to go that way in Tampa.
All right.
I would actually just add that we anticipate being able to have many, many more events by training elsewhere because it will reduce the burden on the field significantly.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, thank you for answering my questions. It's good to see you all here, and congratulations on getting to the playoffs this year. Let's hope for a great season next year too. Thank you.
Councilmember Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions, just looking at the agreement, and this is part of my novice, but is there a difference between a management agreement and a lease?
There is, yes. It's more about kind of the control of the property, if you will. Management agreement is certainly a less of a standard. Maybe Leo can give me a better explanation of it than that, but.
I mean, Mr. Zealy is correct. Well, I'd say the primary difference is the management agreement isn't an interest in the property, whereas a lease would be. But there is still a large degree of control by the management company. It's really just a legal distinction of whether you have an interest in the land or you just manage it.
Thank you. And then are we paying a management fee?
No, we're not.
Okay. And then the last question is if you can tell me a little bit more about this $200,000 that we would be paying per year for the capital improvements and the subject to part of that.
Right. So when we sat down and we started to look at the facility and took a look at the needs that are out there at the facility, and these are not things that have appeared overnight, if you will. They've been out there for a while. Things like the waterproofing, which is a continual project to make sure that we protect the structure. The field condition, regularly has to be redone and looked at. The lighting system, it's certainly something. The lights that are there today are the lights that were there when we had baseball in the facility. So they're really not the proper system for a soccer pitch, if you will. The way the poles are located and the fixtures on the poles, it really doesn't provide the right illumination, lighting for what we're trying to do today for the Rowdy soccer games. All of those type of elements are out there. And when we looked at the costs that are in front of the facility to do those things, since it is a city facility at the end of the day, participating in that seemed to be the reasonable thing to do to make sure we can keep it up to the standards that we both expect to see happen out there.
Thank you. And is that standard for leases and agreements that are made between
managers of properties that the city owns? Is that a standard thing that's done? Will we?
To some degree, some recognition of capital improvements is usually included. Depends on the type of facility we have, whether the operator is fully responsible for some of those things or whether we share. And it really depends on each agreement. That's a negotiated type of element.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. Regarding the naming rights, and this might be a question for the city attorney, is there anything in, so this park space or this building on a park space has been named before. And based on the process that we have, is there anything in that will create a hindrance to add a name? Is it going to be an amendment to what was approved before, or would this be something new?
I think it depends. So, the name Al Lang Field is codified in Chapter 21. So if you were renaming the park from Al Lang Field to Al Lang something, that could require a change to a certain provision in city code. There could also be another portion in city code where if you're naming a portion, you would just add a line to a different section. So it would be more of an ordinance process and codification in Chapter 21.
Yeah, I think, and Joe can correct me, I think in all likelihood, it wouldn't be a hindrance. This would probably be something in addition to, not a fundamental change to any, not trying to speak for you, Joe, but based on my best guess, I don't think this would be a fundamental change that would be a hindrance or require any significant type of change. It would probably be more of an add-on.
That's correct. Yeah, we just want to make sure that they recognize the fact that it becomes a public process for any of those type of names.
And council member, Chapter 2180 or Section 2186, of City Code kind of addresses names of park buildings and park facilities, like, for example, the Jet Jackson Recreation Center. So I completely concur, it wouldn't be a hindrance. It would just most likely be an ordinance process, and the applicable section of city code would ultimately be, expanded upon or amended.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything different about the agreements or the accommodations that are made for the Grand Prix or for the Saturday morning market, or is that the same?
No, those remain the same, right? There's language in the lease agreement that talks specifically about both of those events, so
Right.
that hasn't changed.
Has either of those entities requested something more or any kind of a change, or are they also good with the way everything is set up right
I've
now?
not heard anything from either one of those entities related to that the current agreement language does not work for them. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we're good on that.
Okay, so I think about the Saturday morning market and how popular it is and how it's grown, and so it made me wonder, like, would they be asking for something more than what they have already? And then, of course, the Grand Prix, they make adjustments almost every year to get better and better at the way that they handle that event. So that's why I ask.
I think we're on solid ground with both of those events. And actually, the Saturday morning market actually is in the parking lot, which is under city control. But the Rowdies have allowed them to use some of the interior space of the facility. So there's a good working relationship.
Yeah. Okay, good. As long as everyone is happy.
They are.
Thing. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thanks to the Rowdies Club for all that you do for keeping it going here in St. Pete. The games are just really exciting to attend, and it's wonderful that it's such a great family atmosphere as well. Just something else for people to find that they can enjoy in St. Pete, and we're really proud of that team. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Seeing that there's no further request for discussion, will the clerk please open the machine for voting? Council members, please enter your votes. Seeing that all council members have voted, will the clerk please tally and announce the votes?
Madam Chair, the motion to approve agenda item F2 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next is item F3, our 2022 repetitive loss area analysis annual report. And joining us for that is Elizabeth Abernathy. Good afternoon.
Good evening. Liz Abernathy, your Director of Planning and Development Services. Timely evening to talk about repetitive loss annual report. So this is something that we do each year. I do have a presentation. Hopefully we can find that. So as we're bringing that up, we do conduct a yearly analysis based on our repetitive loss data that is provided by FEMA, and that is in accordance with our community rating system program. And that program provides for credits based on analyzing these most severely flooded areas within the city. That gives us points towards our community rating system. And our current rating is 5, which provides a 25% discount for anyone that has to have or chooses to have flood insurance in our community. This annual area analysis follows FEMA guidelines to determine why an area has repeated flood losses and what alternative flood protection measures would help to break the cycle of repetitive flooding. Our repetitive loss areas are determined by counting each repetitive loss structure and adjacent structures, again, in accordance with the CRS program. A repetitive loss structure is a building for which 2 or more claims of over $1,000 in a 10-year rolling period since 1978. A severe repetitive loss structure has 4 or more claims greater than $5,000. We do have 4 areas or sub-areas in our city where these structures are located. Our highest concentration is in our east sub-area, which is predominantly the Shore Acres neighborhood, and followed by the north area, which is consists of our Riviera Bay neighborhood. Our Engineering and Capital Improvements Department has a master drainage plan, and this plan is currently being updated to include sea level rise projections. There's a number of drainage improvements that have been provided in the last couple of years in the Riviera Bay neighborhood. One has been completed, and there's other ongoing improvements listed here. In our Shore Acres neighborhood, the city completed a tidal resiliency project assessment in December of 2018, and that serves as the basis of future design work. And currently the city is installing additional backflow preventers and is initiating design phases on other projects for this sub-area. In our south sub-area, the city completed a resiliency study and has fast-tracked the section of the Stormwater Master Plan. Planned projects include stream restoration and enhancement of Little Bayou, Bartlett Lake, and Lake Magori, outfall improvements, as well as road raising and resiliency measures such as backflow prevention and living shoreline initiatives. In our west sub-area, the city has analyzed improvements to Bear Creek conveyance and an ongoing project along First Avenue North and 58th Street North, along with completed stormwater projects at Jungle Lake, which increases capacity and water quality treatment. Future projects will be identified in the updated Stormwater Master Plan and focus on channel widening and conveyance improvements. These completed and planned projects help to reduce flooding within repetitive loss areas, and maintenance for all projects and ongoing street sweeping continues for all of these areas. Based on the data that we see in these repetitive loss areas, flooding problems are primarily for structures located in our flood zone, our AE zone. Most of these structures are 1-story slab on grade built before 1974. As you know, we're seeing a lot of redevelopment of structures in these neighborhoods, being brought up to our current flood regulations. We have a lot of structural flooding caused by heavy rains with high tides and storm surges like today from wind events, along with tidally influenced street drainage, wake from vehicles, and again, taking into account rising sea levels. We're looking at a number of possible mitigation measures, including acquisition, elevating structures. We do participate in the FEMA's grant program, and there's a number of structures in the process or recently completed. Dry flood proofing, utility protection, drainage improvements, maintaining flood insurance are all different areas of mitigation that we employ and continue to explore. We also did, some of you were here last summer when we updated our floodplain management ordinance, and that was quite an undertaking. That takes a lot of coordination with FEMA. That concludes the presentation on our annual analysis, and I'm here to answer questions and have a few backup staff here too in case you get a little technical and I need some support. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gabbard.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Liz. You know, this is the stuff like I always love this report because this directly affects the residents of Riviera Bay, my largest neighborhood in District 2. And so I guess my first question would be, can we get an update on the audit that we would currently or maybe hopefully be going under soon that might get us to that 4 or maybe even 3 that we have been looking at for our CRS?
So as you know, Brajaj and Claude and team have been diligently working on updating the Stormwater Master Plan, and we'll be bringing that forward to you in the first quarter of next year. That is really the next critical item to get us to the next level. As soon as that happens, we can immediately request an audit to bring our CRS rating down. So we're looking at that along with some other measures to will definitely get us to 4, and we're hoping we can do enough maybe to get us to a 3, as Pinellas County recently did and leapfrogged over us. And you know, we want to be right up there and try to get to that 3, which will give an additional 10%. So it's 5% for each rating point. So that's huge when, you know, people's flood insurance rates just keep going up every year.
Yeah, I mean, the millions and millions of dollars that our residents collectively save every single time we can make a jump. So really wanting to get to that 3. I was hoping we could do it before Pinellas County, because before them, I think Ocala was the only one, right, in the entire state. So I'm very much looking forward to us being able to bring that in for a landing. Critically important for savings for our residents. And I think it's a really great incentive as well for residents who maybe are not required to carry flood insurance. If they know that they live in a city where they get substantial discount, then maybe we can encourage. So would love to see, once we get to that point, maybe some education out to our residents that could, you know, kind of give them a gentle nudge to protect themselves, because for us, that's a huge resiliency issue. Question.
That does give us points too. So all that educational and outreach also provides additional points towards the CRS rating.
And I was going to ask, so I think it was maybe year before last, we had made the decision to kind of eliminate our city's program for public information stakeholder group and then kind of absorb that into the county's group, which I believe meets quarterly. How is that going? Are we feeling like that is still the best path forward for us, or is it maybe prudent of us to revisit bringing back our own group?
I can bring Scott Crawford up if he has any information, but I would say it's always prudent to revisit everything as we move forward. And again, as we're kind of deep diving into those rating in every point that we can possibly get, we'll need to reevaluate all of those steps, including that, and see if there's a reason for us to perhaps have our own program.
Okay.
Scott has
nothing to add. Well, I had sat on that group for years before I was elected, and then continued to work with that group. And now I sit in on those county meetings, and it's just a little bit different of a takeoff, right? Whenever you sit on those very large groups. And so I'm just curious if there's any benefit to us to bringing that back in-house.
So good feedback, and we'll meet offline to talk about that a little bit more.
Perfect. Sounds good. So I also want to say on the drainage improvements that have been done in our neck of the woods up on the north side. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Claude, I don't know if Claude is here, but he has really been a great partner in making sure that we are doing, those backup generators, getting those in place just in time for Hurricane Ian and now Tropical Storm Nicole has been a real relief to the residents, just kind of a peace of mind to them. So I definitely wanted to thank the administration for the focus on that and the pump upgrade stations that are upgrades that are coming. Would anybody be here that could talk a little bit about those upgrades that are happening now through May?
Brajesh Preman will be coming right out and probably can add to that. And while he's walking out, I will let you know our teams will be out tomorrow morning to look for damage assessment from today and through tonight's event. So we'll be assessing that. Brajesh?
Good day, City Council. Pleasure to be here. A little busy period right now, but warranted discussion. So specifically, as it relates to projects within the northeast quadrant of the city, we have identified some preliminary projects out of the master plan. We're working through that process and vetting them as we're working through the modeling of it. As it relates to Riviera, those items itself, we are going to continue with our pump station upgrades for reliability. We're going to conduct a complete pump station assessment, taking a look at the actual pumps, the ages, the discharge pipes. We did already complete the generator and an emergency switchgear connection, and we'll be doing that with both of those. As it relates to some other stormwater improvements in the entire northeast quadrant, if I can cover that as well. Today, Assistant City Administrator Tom Green signed off on a letter for us to provide another grant application. While the project is funded for the Connecticut pump station, Appian Way pump station, we'll be making that grant submission as well. As it relates to some of the major projects in the south quadrant of the city, just trying to touch some of the major ones. I'll be glad to say that the Butler Lake Pump Station, stormwater improvements for the lake itself, while we did receive one grant for 1.5, we're in the potential running for another grant that will fully fund the entire project. So then relieving some of the additional funds that we've already put into the rate analysis. So this proactive approach we're taking to identify these projects, do proper planning, proper assessments on these projects are helping us gather that support as we pursue grant funding to help reduce also the rates on our residents.
Very good. And quickly, I hate to put you on the spot, but maybe a quick update on the seawall study that we're doing, because that's something that residents ask about all the time.
I will be very short on that update only because it is an active RFQ.
Okay, very
So
good.
it is out.
Well, that kind of answered my question. So, okay, good. So it is out. Yes. Okay, very good. And then, I mean, the last thing that I would just touch on quickly, and thank you, Brajesh. I don't think I have anything else for you, but just talking really more in general with administration about mitigation measures. You know, very disappointed that the constitutional amendment did not pass that would have saved residents whenever they do mitigate from that additional tax assessment. So close, but it just didn't make that 60%. Hope that we see that back again, because I think one of the most challenging pieces is incentivizing residents to be able to do mitigation. We have a lot of people trying to go through the grant program. You mentioned Scott Crawford. I had a conversation with him a couple weeks back, several people going through that, but there is an upfront barrier whenever people actually get approved for those grants to be able to front money so that they can then actually get the work started before we as the city get those grants in to facilitate that work. So I would just ask administration if we could revisit an idea that I brought forward back in 2018 that would create a revolving loan fund to assist those FEMA grantees with that upfront cost. we facilitate that money anyway. And so we would very easily, I believe, be able to recoup our cost and continue to pay that forward to more residents to incentivize them to do that mitigation. It's just that's the barrier. That's why people don't do it. They don't have $50,000 to $75,000 to come out of pocket to get started. And so I would love for us to revisit that idea. And then I also just want to thank you, Liz, because we've had some offline conversations, and Rob, about the importance of really looking to hire and work on having a professional floodplain coordinator for our city. Scott has done a great job. Before him, Noah Taylor did a great job. But we are a city that is incredibly vulnerable. We are going to continue to have these problems, continue to have these issues. The floodplain is going to grow. And I just believe it's prudent at this time, as Scott is getting ready to retire, that we really look at making this a floodplain coordinator position so that we can get top-notch talent to be able to bring us all of the resources that we need. So those are my two requests. I will leave it there, and we'll go to Councilmember Montanari.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And yes, your timing of this report after the passing of Hurricane Nicole, and we're approaching high tide here in St. Petersburg, and we're expecting a 1 to 3 foot surge. And I just know that one of the other, Vice Chair Gabbard represents one of the repetitive loss neighborhoods, Riviera Bay, and I represent the other one, Shore Acres. And I just, I am always concerned when these sorts of things happen. And if anybody is watching that's traveling through Shore Acres, I just hope everybody slows down so that we don't have any sort of man-made wakes that damage people's homes in that neighborhood. I did want to thank you all for the report and the drainage improvements that I see for the east sub area. The backflow preventers are always appreciated, and I'm glad that we're putting a few more in this year. And then Burjesh, you talked about the Appian Way project, but the Connecticut Avenue improvement. I know that's going to be a very big improvement for Shore Acres, and long overdue. Can you give us a little bit of an update on where we are with the funding of that program?
Yes, the funding was just approved in the October 1st budget for FY23. So we're in the process of developing the draft scope of services for the RFQ, which we'll be putting out on the street very shortly. That doesn't prevent us from still pursuing grant applications for the construction phase funding. So in short, we are going to start designing this fiscal year.
Okay. All right. I was under the impression that we're looking for some grant funding for that project, just like we were with the Appian Way project.
We will always continue to look for grant funding, even though we budget the projects. We'll always look to pursue grant funding with the intent of, if we do receive it, that is funding that we could reallocate for other projects or help reduce any future rate increases.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Liz, I also wanted to thank you for the report. So one of the things that I always go to is the owner comments that are in the report, because we send letters out every year, and it's good to hear back from homeowners in these neighborhoods. So thank you for the update, and I'll leave it right there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Liz. Next, we will take up item F5, our update on Manhattan Casino. Hello again.
Afternoon, City Council. Joe Zioli, City Development Administration. We do have a PowerPoint presentation for this one. Thank you. So city staff was requested to provide the council a Manhattan Casino update. The last update that we provided the council was on March 24th, 2022. This report will focus on activities that have happened since that last meeting. Specifically, we're going to review the current status of the Callaloo lease agreement and activities designed to take the Manhattan Casino into 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, the lights, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a few comments. I'm sorry, we miscommunicated. I wanted to give a few comments before Joe started.
Wonderful.
So this has been an ongoing issue. I remember as a candidate watching some of y'all deal with this last September, and I was hopeful y'all would have a conclusion for it, but you don't. And we're in a tough place now. We need to make a decision on this going forward. I do want to thank the Urban Collective, Ms. Washington, who made comments as well. I know they worked hard on this, and I know that you're passionate about the future of the Manhattan Casino. This is an issue that I've dealt with since day one. In fact, a letter of default was issued to the Manhattan for past due payments last December, before I took the oath of office. So literally since my first week in office, our team has sought to understand the options and find the best path going forward. Through staff, Joe as interim city development administrator, and Anthony Corbett, James Corbett as city development administrator, we've tried to be innovative about solutions. I've asked for basic information. Y'all know I'm an accountant, so the first thing I wanted to see is bank statements, financials. Let me see if the path is changing. It took weeks, if not months, to even receive back that basic information. Despite what we've seen on some social media lately, I have spoken with members of the Urban Collective, and I'll just call it UC, about a path forward. I was told that UC could pay the past due rent. That never happened. And it always seemed tied to a discussion of a lease extension. And I understand where they're coming from with it. But the rent has not been paid. It has not been paid the entire time that I've been in office. In fact, it has not been paid since October of last year and stands now at $98,967 of unpaid rent. Our staff has held many meetings with the Urban Collective representatives, and I, as I said, have personally met with members as well. And my message has always been the same. We need to find ways to settle the amount owed in back rent, and that I was open to creative ways to reduce the amount owed. That was not accepted by UC. So the lease, which is with the Callaloo Group, ends on November 30th. And given the current status of the rent owed, the lack of communication and collaboration, I cannot justify an extension. And this is no surprise to the folks from the UC that I have spoken to, because I've expressed that very clearly in person meetings, most recently with Mr. Mallory and Pastor Murray in my office. So it's not a surprise. Equitable economic development is a priority, and it's a pillar of my administration. But that does not mean that anything goes. The rules still matter. We have to operate within the contractual agreements that we make, and that includes lease payments, maintenance, and we expect responsiveness to valid requests for reports and information from administration. As I said, the 2017 agreement is between the city and the Callaloo Group. When the Urban Collective joined Callaloo in 2021, they assumed all of the responsibilities that are in that agreement, including the debts. The city did not put the Urban Collective in that position. They chose to take that risk, and I give them credit for wanting to make a difference. But they took on that liability, and because of that business decision to join Callaloo and assume those liabilities, well, that has consequences that the city is not responsible for. The fact is, we have been very patient across 2 administrations and have explored every feasible option to bring this to a mutually acceptable conclusion. However, based on the facts before us and the default status of the agreement as it stands today, extending this lease beyond November 30th does not make business or practical sense. The restaurant business model clearly is not working, nor did it for previous restaurants at the location. Therefore, extending the lease is not an option that I will support nor execute. I want to say a few words about the community conversation that we had. The current agreement is a result of a competitive process after an unsolicited tenant offer in 2017. And I think after multiple failed ventures at that site, it's time for a fresh look at what the most impactful and successful use of that facility can be, that we ask the community